welcome back to another episode of Westerospective, where we bring you Game of Thrones, the old seasons and the new. I'm Geoff.
I'm Ron.
And today we are going to be covering Season 1, Episode 7, You Win or You Die of Game of Thrones. But caveat with this is we are warning you for spoilers for all 6 seasons of Game of Thrones because we are actually revisiting these episodes after having watched the new seasons. So with that in mind, the first thing I wanted to note was, to me, this episode was all Littlefingers. What'd you think?
Yeah, I thought so too. He had a lot of the best moments and a lot of the best lines, actually.
Almost just about everything he says could be quotable. We're going to throw out a couple, but not like the whole thing, because you could literally quote just about everything Aidan Gillen says.
And he's probably had the most screen time in this one over the other episodes, too.
Yeah, this is probably the, it might be the most Littlefinger screen time you get out of the entire series.
Probably.
It really establishes his motivations, and I think the actor really found what he wanted to do in this episode, too.
Yes.
But yeah, we're going to go chronologically through the episode. I believe the episode opens up with the first meeting with Tywin, right?
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about that one.
Yeah.
How good was Charles Dance just from the get-go?
I know. He already knew where he was going with Tywin. I like the metaphor that he's carving up a stag.
See, what's funny is I always remembered the very first time you meet him because it's very distinctive because you always think of him cutting up the animal.
Yeah.
And I didn't know exactly which season he premiered and whether it was 1 or season 2, but damn, it really sticks in your mind with having him have that conversation while he's disemboweling this fucking animal right in front of you.
And like I said, it's a stag, which is the symbol of the House Baratheon. Yeah,
it's pretty crazy. Like fucking Martin and his animal imagery is just ridiculous. Yeah, it was crazy to see Charles Dance. Like you said, he already knew exactly what he wanted to do with it. Very similar to Jaime, who he's sharing the scene with. They both, at the very first time you meet each of them, it really seems like they really knew what they wanted to do with it. I mean, it's fucking Charles Dance, so you know he's great, but I was even more impressed revisiting it.
Yes. He has a couple of lines talking about Jaime, and I think it sums up Tywin and Jaime pretty good. When at one point, I'm not going to go through the whole dialogue because he commands the entire scene, but at one point, he's talking about how you really shouldn't concern yourself with people's opinions. And he says, a lion doesn't concern himself with the opinion of a sheep. And then at another point later, referring to Tywin being imprisoned, he says, every day he remains a prisoner, the less our name commands respect. And Jaime says, so the lion does concern himself with the opinion of, and then he gets cut off by Tywin angrily.
It's good stuff. Stuff.
You notice how Jaime seems terrified of Tywin the entire scene too?
He's very timid, which he usually is not.
Yes.
Usually he has
he's almost like a child.
Usually he has swagger about him, and he sort of kinda, jabs at Tywin a couple times, but for the most part he's very timid around his dad. Did you have anything else you wanted to add with this scene?
Nope, that was just one of the things I really wanted to quote, because I love that part. It's like the one time he opens his mouth, Tywin just shuts him the fuck down.
Yeah, absolutely. From there, they transition to the Cersei and Ned scene in the Garden of Betrayal, which is always a good place for Game of Thrones. The one thing I immediately thought of is, have you seen the Family Guy thing where he's just like, she said the thing.
Yes.
She said the thing.
Yes.
That's exactly what I think of every time I watch this scene, because she obviously says the title of the show, and every time a movie or fucking episode of television does that now, I automatically think that Family Guy
and
joke.
That's why I'm Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. So that's why they called it that.
Yeah, this is exactly what I was thinking. There's not really much to say. That's, again, pretty much their whole conversation could be quoted. Did you have anything else you wanted to specifically say about it?
No, I always loved her line delivery on when you play the Game of Thrones, you win or die, there is no middle ground.
Yeah, she did it very well. It could have come across very corny, but she did it really well.
Yeah.
Let's see. From there, we go to the Littlefinger scene where he's with Roz and the other prostitute while they're in the brothel. And this is just Aidan Gillen just chewing up the scenery, because we could quote every single thing he says in this entire scene, basically.
Pretty much.
And he's so good at having this conversation with really no one. He's just basically kind of talking with the audience.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's one of those scenes where it's like Littlefinger is such a creepy motherfucker, but I love his character, where it's kind of like you're clashing with yourself and what you think about him.
Yeah. He's one of my favorite types of, dare I say, villain, because everyone in Game of Thrones is so gray you can't tell if they're a villain or not. But in any movie or TV show, my favorite type of villain is basically the way he is. It's all intellectual, and if something goes down his way, he made it happen, but usually not with his own hands.
I did write down one of his quotes that I loved.
Play with her ass.
Do what?
Play with her ass.
Oh, how'd you know? The one I did write down, besides that one, is it starts out with Rose talking to him, and she says, "What she doesn't know won't hurt her." And then he says, "A stupid saying, what we don't know is usually what gets us killed."
Yes.
I fucking love that quote. That's another one you could put on the front of Forbes. Doesn't even have to be related to Game of Thrones. It's good. Yeah, we could include the whole conversation.
I would like to see he play with her ass on the front of Forbes.
I would have so much more respect for Forbes.
Play with her ass, Aidan Gillen.
Did you want to add anything else to that scene?
No, not really. He's basically, I mean, he's not the only character on screen, but he basically is, and he commanded the screen so well. I really like that actor.
That's the first scene where he really, I think, figured out what he wanted to do with it. From there, we go to a scene that begins with Osha and Theon. And this is more fucking evidence as to how creepy a son of a bitch Theon is. It's a very kind of disturbing scene when you think about what he's trying to do.
Also, the way I saw it, too, it kind of puts on display a little bit how he doesn't really think about his words in the scene. Kind of how later in season he doesn't really think about his actions. He just kind of jumps in. I found that kind of interesting. The first time I ever saw this scene, it just hit me as just a funny moment. But knowing what he does later in the show, there's actually a lot of parallels you can draw just with dialogue versus his actions later.
I like the quotes. I didn't write them down, but the moments where Osha is basically calling out all of their politics. When he's telling her, "You must refer to me as Lord," and then they get in the conversation about "You must refer to me as Lord because my father is, the Lord of the Iron Islands." Blah blah blah.
So your
and she's
father
like, "Well,
is,
what does it have to do
but
with you?"
You're not. Yes.
Yeah, it's because it's incredibly true. It's like their politics are so jacked up that it's like you don't have to do a damn thing to command respect just because of you happen to be born to this family.
The best line goes to the Maester.
Yeah, I wrote down that one if you'd like it, because I fucking love that scene. Yeah, Maester Luwin walks in to kind of break up where Theon's trying to go with the situation, and then he says, "Theon Greyjoy, the lady is our guest. I thought she was our prisoner. Are the two mutually exclusive in your experience?"
Burn, motherfucker.
And when I watched it, I literally was like, damn!
And then the Maester dropped the mic and walked away.
Oh, it's fantastic. I always liked his character. I wish he would have been, just like everyone else in Game of Thrones, I wish he would have been able to be around for longer. But yeah, that quote was fantastic.
Yeah, dude, I remembered this scene, but I had no memory of him saying that. So when he said it, I literally just laughed out loud, like, "Oh my god, I forgot about that."
Yeah, and then if you don't have an exact context for it yet, it doesn't really sink in until you know the specifics of Theon's situation. Looks like we're going to talk about the scene where Jon and Sam are on the top of the wall, and then it's a very eerie scene because you just see the lone horse of Benjen come riding back in. They run back down, and it's kind of heartbreaking too because you don't see him for another. It was like 6 seasons, right?
Yeah, it's season 6 that you see him again. Yeah.
That was the biggest fallout. Was there anything with the scene you wanted to add?
No, not a whole lot to add there.
Let's see. Okay, now we move on to one of the more important scenes of the first season, and this is between Ned, Joffrey, Robert, and Cersei. And this is when Ned realizes, Robert's going to die, basically. He goes in after he's been summoned by Renly. He tells him, he got injured by the boar, and then he looks at the wound, and he's like, oh, he's going to die. They just don't have the medicine to cope with it. And they go through the whole thing where there's this really cool moment where Ned is summoned by Robert to talk with him privately. And the first thing you get a clue of what actually happened is Cersei does not want to have that conversation happen. She immediately was just like, her usual spiel of like, I forget exactly what term she calls it, but like my love or something like that. And then he sends her the fuck out of the room.
Yeah.
It ends up being just Ned and Robert alone. And it's very, very heartfelt because you just see like Robert has a cool quote where he's talking to him about basically Daenerys about the decision to assassinate her, and he immediately
you were the only one to tell me no.
Yeah, you were the only one to tell me no, and he realizes at that moment that's like that's exactly what a king needs, is the one person who's brave enough to say what you're doing is wrong. Yeah,
he said something like Baelish Varys. He's named all everyone on the small council and said they're all worthless or whatever. You're the only one to tell me no. Yeah. I also really, really liked the little detail that I hadn't noticed, I think, the first time or two watching the show. When Robert is telling him what to write down for his final kind of command as king on the parchment, he tells him during the rightful heir line, my rightful heir Joffrey, but Ned doesn't write anything down. He just says my rightful heir. And that was a little detail I hadn't noticed the first time watching it. I thought it was very cool. Yeah, I had always picked up on that part. I had no idea it was going to lead to something later in the season when, I guess we can just go ahead and say it since we're assuming everybody has watched it like we have, when he's going around killing all the bastards and stuff. Well, not him, but I guess the King's Guard is probably under Cersei's orders. But yeah, I had always picked up on that, but the first time or two I had watched it, it didn't mean as much to me as it did this time through.
Yeah. Let's see. Did you have anything else between their conversation specifically? Because I am going to talk about something when Ned leaves the room. But was there anything else you wanted to add with Robert and Ned's conversation?
Just that I always really liked. To me, this is something that this was something that would actually happen to two friends in this situation. When Ned starts the conversation with "You damned fool."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the line, too, where Robert's talking to him about after he dubs him, is it the Regent King type of thing?
Yeah, he's Regent.
King Regent. I like the line where he says that you'll hate it even more than I did.
Yeah.
I liked that type of touch with the dialogue. When Ned leaves the room, he goes out and he talks to, I know he talks to Varys. Is Renly the other person with him?
Yeah.
It's been a couple of days since I've seen the episode. I like how Varys knew exactly what happened, but Varys is so clever about the way he speaks and what he says. He can basically insinuate that, he was basically assassinated. This wasn't an accident. He was poisoned or drugged, in his alcohol. But Varys is so fucking clever, he can say that without actually going about saying it.
Yeah, he makes his point clear without ever saying it. Yeah. No, I don't know that I picked up on that the first time or two that I watched this, but I picked up on it for sure this time.
Because, the thing with Varys is, And
it's right after Sean Bean says, the Lannister boy?
Yeah, because he points out, is it Lancel? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Spaceballs?
Lancel.
Oh, Lancel. Yeah, I like that, too. Because, in retrospect, when you look at it, Littlefinger is all about himself, but Varys is actually, he's being smart about protecting himself, but I think Varys actually does have the right intentions a lot of these times. It's just, he knows when to not overstep his bounds.
He tells Sean Bean later in the season that everything he does is for the good of the realm. No matter how good or bad it looks, it's always for the good of the realm. Whereas Littlefinger, it's always for the good of Littlefinger.
Exactly.
Because he wants everything. Everything there is. Was the line he had with Roz. All
right. From there we go to a scene between Drogo and Khaleesi. And this is when Jorah enters the frame. I didn't write down a whole lot of notes with this one. Could you refresh my memory about what exactly happens in this scene? Because you just watched it more recently than I did.
Basically, the scene starts out with Khaleesi and Drogo having a conversation, and she's trying to make him understand the Iron Throne and what that's all about, and what the point of the Iron Throne is, and that basically she wants it, and he's just basically, it's not the Dothraki way, so he basically just keeps shooting her down.
Yeah, why do they need an iron chair when they can just have a horse type of thing?
Yeah, he says that a call doesn't need a chair. They just need a fine horse or a good horse or something like that. Then he exits, and then it cuts to them at the market.
Yes, yeah.
With Jorah, one of my absolute favorite characters. The girl that her brother had bought for her, and then her Dothraki servant that burned her hands, and then a guard behind them. And they're just walking through the market, and Jorah takes a moment saying that he's going to see if there's any mail for him, basically. And the thing that meant nothing to me until season 5, I guess, because I'm just a freaking idiot. Because, the first couple times I watched this, I never caught that he was the fucking spy to begin with. And then now he's receiving his pardon.
Yeah, I had completely forgotten that they straight up gave him the pardon. And
he
they had that
fucking kept it. Because then season 5, I think it is it Barristan? It's brought to his attention that he has that.
Because it's a really, really cool moment, because Jorah has this moment where he gets the pardon. At that point, he is scot-free to go home. He can walk away right there.
And that's the thing that he wanted more than anything. Exactly.
And he's looking back, and he has this, 50-50 choice of, do I want to get, I finally got what I've desperately wanted. I can go home, or I can go and help her. And it sucks because, he ends up getting banished because he did betray her. But in this moment, he chooses her, and he saves her over himself. Yeah. It's very, very heartbreaking.
I don't know if you would call it a Sophie's choice or not, but he can choose between her or himself, and they both serve him because he never planned to fall in love with her. But basically, if she dies, he goes home and gets everything he wants. If she lives, then she lives, and he can continue to serve her. So he makes his choice. He knows it's going to happen because he received his pardon. And I also like how the bird referred to Varys as the spider. He says he sent his appreciation or something. Yeah. And then he knows it's going to happen, but I think it was pretty clear to me that he didn't know how it was going to happen until the moment. But he knew it was going to happen because he received his pardon.
The scene where he goes back and they have that whole assassination attempt with the wine is very, very intense.
That poor bastard.
Oh man, I love this the way they filmed it too, because they do just a bunch of close-ups.
Yeah,
and they're just cutting back and forth between the close-ups, and it's really intense. And I thought it was really well directed. But yeah, at that point, Jorah, he was already given the pardon. He could have just walked away. I don't even think at that point. I don't think at that point the assassination even has to be successful. At that point, he did what they asked him to do. He was given his pardon.
Yeah.
She was in position to be killed. I think at that point, if he had just walked away, even if by other means the assassination had been stopped, I think he would have been able to go home, and he still chose her. Yeah. It's a really cool character moment for him that you don't fully appreciate until you go back.
But again, I just feel so fucking stupid because it's in his hand. It's point center on screen.
Yeah, right.
And they basically say you can go home, and the look on his face says it all. And in season 5, when they pull that out of his bag, I'm like, what's that?
I totally forgot about it too. Especially if you watch it over a few years, it really just all kind of blurs.
Yeah.
Was there anything else you wanted to add with the scene?
No, just I'm a fucktard.
Same. We transition to the Night's Watch, where Commander Mormont is giving out
one of my other favorite Mormonts. Dude, I found out
all the fucking Mormonts.
I fucking love the Mormonts, dude.
Yeah, dude. They're all like, no matter if they're 80 or if they're 8, they're all amazing.
Whatever I can do to become a Mormont, if I gotta marry into it or whatever, I don't care.
No kidding.
Team
Excited.
Mormont.
I need more Lyanna Mormont in the new seasons. I hope they find a way to add her more.
Team Mormont, #60.
Exactly. Mormont is giving out the ranks, and this is where you find out that Jon has not been made a ranger. He is made the squires, basically.
Huh?
I forget what they call them. What do they call the stewards? That's right. Okay. He's going to be Commander Mormont's personal steward, and he immediately gets pissed off because now he not only wants to be a ranger, but he wants to go out looking for his uncle. And they fucking set up even more of him and Thorne hating each other, because all they show the whole time that's happening is Thorne with that shit-eating grin on his face because he fucking hates Snow so bad.
Yeah, no, I like that, and I like that Snow has a character moment here too, because the look on his face says it all. But when he says it's not fair, and his buddy calls him out on it,
yeah.
Like, the look on Snow's face that entire moment, it was just, I felt like that was a character moment for him, because you can tell that he kind of regretted like whining about that in that moment. And then when the guy walks off, he doesn't really know what to say or do. He's just kind of standing there.
I like, too, how earlier on he's talking about how, like, a steward's work is noble work, blah, 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 until he's assigned to do it. Then he's like, oh, fuck that, you're a maid.
Yeah.
I think that's even almost like basic direct quote from him. It's just like, yeah.
But yeah, see, and then also, if you notice, he's just total anger until his buddy calls him out on the shit for saying it's not fair and all that stuff. And then it kind of takes him out of his anger, because I think it catches him off guard. He didn't realize what he was saying.
Yep. All right. Now we're moving on to a scene between a really, really great scene I'd forgotten about. There's actually a moment between Ned and Renly that I'd forgotten about. I thought it was really, really cool how Renly appears to be a bit of a dipshit, but he knew in this moment exactly what needed to be done.
Yes.
What's crazy too is if Ned had actually gone along at this moment in time and done what Renly wanted to do, the entire landscape of the show could be completely different.
Yep.
Because, Renly knows who they're dealing with better than Ned does.
But he knows how to play the game.
Exactly, because, Renly tells him, like, we have to move now. As soon as Robert is dead, we're all fucked. And he's absolutely right. And I think, because you can see by the look on Sean Bean's face, I think Ned is believing what he's saying and is on the verge of doing it until Renly starts talking about, I should be king.
Yes.
If in this moment in time, Renly does not bring up I should be king and turn away Ned from wanting to go along with him, I think the entire show and book series is completely different, because he really did know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree. He looks like he couldn't decide if he wanted to go along with Renly or not, and when Renly says that he's fit to be king, Sean Bean's character kind of sees the way it's going, and his honor won't let him do that. Yeah,
because he knows exactly what to do, but he's doing it for selfish intentions.
If I'm not mistaken, his first response to that was, "What about Stannis?"
Yeah, what's cool too is actually going back, when you don't meet Stannis yet until season 2, and then you go back to watch the show over again, I think it really helps you kind of fit the pieces together what they're talking about when you actually know who Stannis is, when you have a face to the name.
Yeah.
I think it really helps all of these conversations they have. One quote that Renly has that I really, really like, too, it was a bit of a social commentary from Martin, if it's actually from the book, or Benioff and Weiss, if it was from them, but I like his line where he says, "Do you still believe good soldiers make good kings?"
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of deep context behind that goes even beyond the show, too. And... man, it was a really, really good scene I'd totally forgotten about. They do a lot more with Renly than I had remembered.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing him as much as we saw him.
Because, like, you know, the first thing I always think of is everything having to do with him in Season 2, you know, like when he gets assassinated. I don't really associate the first season stuff. The only
thing that I ever remembered about him from Season 1 was that moment when he wins the bet or whatever, and... Baelish says, "When will you be having your friend?" Like, that's really the only thing I remember from him in Season 1 is that whole bet, that whole scene.
Yep. Yeah, while we're talking about Littlefinger, the next scene up is between him and Ned. And this is another thing. Their entire conversation we could quote word for word because it's all gold. It's all really, really great dialogue. This is, again... Littlefinger being all about Littlefinger because everything he says makes a lot of sense, but he's going to Ned with how Ned can see our selfish reasonings behind everything, so he basically tells him to fuck off.
Ned fucking puts all his cards out on the table, and it's like, really, dude? Like, really?
I like how a couple of the quotes I wrote down where Littlefinger is basically trying to set himself up to be Hand of the King.
Yes.
That's what this whole scene's about. Because at this point, Ned is King Regent. Littlefinger doesn't care who he's dealing with as long as it further serves his own purposes.
Well, the Hand of the King is right hand to the king, and he wants to be king. That gets him almost there.
Yeah, I like, these are a couple of quotes I wrote down. What you suggest is treason only if we lose.
Yes.
That was fucking like Littlefinger in a nutshell. And I like how, you know, Littlefinger is telling him to make peace with the Lannisters, even after all the shit that's gone down, because, like, you really can't afford to have this war happen, you know, for the sake of everybody. And then he's talking about, you know, you want me to make peace with these people, and he says, you only make peace with your enemies. That's why it's called making peace.
Yes.
That's more good stuff. Yeah, this is more... really just Littlefinger stealing the show again to me. Like, this was all Littlefinger's episode for me.
I also like when Ned was telling him what he wanted to do, and then he was just like, you know it needs to be done, but your honor is keeping you from saying it.
Yeah, they even full-on call him out on it.
Yeah.
And he's still so honor-bound. He knows what he's doing is probably going to get people hurt, but he just can't help himself.
Yeah.
Was there anything else you wanted to add with that one?
No, because we could talk about that scene all day.
Exactly. I agree. We transition to Jon and Sam taking their vows, and then they're heading out to the old gods and the new. Was it the? What are they have a name for the tree, but I can't remember what they fucking call it.
I can never remember what it's called either.
But yeah, they're fucking creepy looking ass trees. I don't know who came up with that design, but it's like stuff of nightmares. It's like the fucking tree with their eyes bleeding and shit. It's like an Iron Maiden album cover.
If you hit them, do you think they make a noise?
Probably.
And summon other enemies?
I didn't really have any notes. Did you have any notes for this scene or anything you wanted to mention?
No, not really. It was, I mean, to me, it was just kind of one of those scenes like they had to show it. Because the next time you see them, they're men of the Night's Watch. And, like, well, when the fuck did they take their vows? So that's...
and it was the perfect time to display how fucking awesome their oath is that Martin wrote. Like, it's just fantastic. Like with all the watchers on the wall, sword in the darkness. Like, it's all really, really great stuff. From there, we go to Khaleesi and Jorah and the assassin. And if there's one person in the history of Game of Thrones I did not want to be, it is that assassin, dude. Because when fucking Momoa walks in...
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Like, that's the one person he did not want to see.
Jesus Christ. Because like, it was really cool is Drogo walks in the tent. and he immediately goes to Khaleesi to make sure she's okay. And as soon as he makes sure she is okay, and he tells Jorah, like, you'll be rewarded with the finest horse, it's yours, whatever you want. As soon as he walks away, you're just like, oh shit, it's not going to end well for this dude. Dude,
when he's right up in the guy's face and he grabs that torch out of the dude's hand, like, even Jorah just kind of like stood up straighter a little bit, like, oh god, here we go.
How fucking fantastic is Jason Momoa in that scene?
Oh man,
he is unrecognizable. It was just like ridiculous. Like, and the whole time
that's the
talking,
first time that Drogo really comes to life. That's the first time he really does anything, to be honest. I mean, I'm not saying the character's insignificant or anything like that, but it's the first time that character kind of wakes up and takes on a life of its own.
Yeah, for the viewer.
Yes.
Because, it's just crazy. Momoa crushes, like, I mean, like, it just goes to show how good he really is, because, like you just said, you really don't ever see Momoa do much in the show, but he will forever be called Drogo because it's such a memorable performance with what he's given.
Everything that has happened up until this point was set up for that scene with Momoa. You know, because he had to start falling in love with her. She had to start wanting the throne. Then her near assassination, which would also assassinate his child, his son, his heir, pushes him over the edge into giving her what she wants. It was people from across the sea that tried to kill her, so he's going to take the horde across the sea to them. And that was finally the push to get everything going. And then, once again, as we pointed out several times, she has everything her brother wanted, including the 40,000 Dothraki. She's got the army that she was sold for.
And it's cool too that, like, he wasn't there to do it, but everything he says they're going to do, she ends up doing.
Yeah.
As we speak, it's happening.
You know, the thing about the Dothraki, whatever you think about them, or, you know, barbarians or whatnot, they stick to a code. She was not Dothraki until she married Khal Drogo. Now they see her exactly as one of them, as if she was born a Dothraki, and they take their lineage and, like, who's Khal and all that very seriously. So to basically threaten and almost have killed the Khal's son, unborn son, that insults all of them. Like, they are 110% behind Khal Drogo, even though he's venturing out on something no other Khal has done, I believe was his words, as no other Khal has.
Yeah, they even refer to it as, like, the poison water. Like, they're terrified of it, and they're going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Momoa crushes it again. Man, I can't wait to see his Aquaman. I'm so excited to see Aquaman.
I hope his Aquaman is playing guitar the entire movie.
Yeah, we can only hope. Now we're going to talk about the last scene of the episode, and oh man, I'm so sad for what is upcoming.
Oh, I know.
Every time I know exactly what's going to happen. I'm never prepared. This is when Ned has the moment that he realizes, oh, I done fucked up, but good.
Yeah.
When he and obviously this is like your first time seeing King Joffrey. The first time you see that little fucker on the throne, knowing what's going to happen, you're just like, oh, just someone please strangle him, that little shit. But the scene that I always go back to, that just shows you, like, the dichotomy between the people in the room. Ned brings the parchment that was signed and sealed by King Robert, and he says, Sir Barristan, I don't think anyone would argue your honor, and he has him specifically read it to everyone.
I think he said no man in this room could question or call into question your honor or something like that, yeah.
And he reads it, and then fucking Cersei, dude, takes it from Sir Barristan and then just shreds it up like it's nothing.
And his reaction says everything you need to know about that character.
Yeah, because Sir Barristan is just totally taken aback. Like, Jesus Christ, like, there really is no honor amongst them anymore. Like, it's just a free-for-all. Because
Sir Barristan is basically as honor-bound as Ned.
Yeah.
You know, we've spent a lot less time with him than we have Ned, but the impression I get of the way that character is portrayed is that he is basically Ned on the opposite side.
Because he straight up says, like, those were the words of the king. I think it's something along what he says. And
Yeah.
he's just like, what the fuck did just happen? And he's just shocked. And then, Ned's whole thing is he thinks he's backed by Littlefinger because Littlefinger tells him, like, I'll buy out the gold cloaks for you. And why Ned, of all people, would trust Littlefinger after all this? And then
I don't even know. I'm just shaking my head. That's all I can do.
When they just start getting slaughtered, the only one left alive is Ned, and of course it's Littlefinger who takes the moment to this is like what he's been looking forward to forever because of how much he's in love with Catelyn. He gets to be the person to put the knife to Ned's throat.
I think an important thing that we didn't mention at the beginning of this episode is, I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but when he was talking to Roz at the beginning about the man that he dueled being Ned's brother. We know who it is. She doesn't know. But all this stuff, and she says, so they got married, and he said, no, the fool got himself killed before the wedding. But she ended up marrying his brother, and he says something like, she ended up with his brother, something like a better man and even more impressive specimen. And then he's the one with that fucking smirk on his face with the knife to Ned's throat.
And it's an utterly brilliant callback because he tells him, I did warn you not to trust me. And that is, you instantly remember the quote too, because we just covered it a couple of weeks ago, is like, I believe the quote was the first intelligent thing you've done since you arrived was not to trust me, or something like that.
Yeah, it was not trusting me is the smartest thing you've done since you made it to King's Landing, or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. It's just like really, really great writing callback that only they can do. Basically, it was just really well done. And again, it's like the whole episode is Littlefinger's episode to me.
I remember the first time that I ever saw this episode because it has such an impact on you.
I do too.
Because the very first time I ever watched this, I liked Littlefinger, I liked Varys, I liked Ned. Ned was my favorite character up to this point. And I just remember that moment when he turns on him. I'm like, you fucker! I liked you. You were my brother.
Yeah, it could not have been spelled out for you any more than it was.
And it was shocking.
But it's shocking. You realize, like, oh man, like this show isn't doing what most other shows do. It's really, really foretelling to some of the things that we're going to talk about pretty soon. But yeah, was there anything else you want to touch on in this episode? I think that just about wraps it up.
Nope, that's pretty much it.
If you'd like to check us out more, please like and subscribe. That gets you all of our content. Not only do we do Game of Thrones stuff, we also do a weekly podcast, do some Let's Plays now and then. Check those out if you are interested. We also have Facebook and Twitter links below if you're curious about those. And if you know anyone else that might also appreciate our content, we would really, really appreciate the share. For this night and all the nights to come, I'm Geoff.
I'm Ron, and now this watch is ended.